Alright, so Reimann update. I saw something in the feed by happenstance. A expression of, I'm sure it's not by happenstance. We'll see, this pi approximation is only off by a billionth, which led me to say, well, maybe there is, you know, obvious patterned pi, as was implied, the fall of pi into a convergent interaction with 22 over 7 generalistically all of a sudden. So if that is the case, there should be clustered pi pattern insofar as in pi, 22 over 7 cluster first inclination, as we've experienced a certain amount of pi before we interact with this other, and naturalistically, pi is a harmonic expression of fire, right? So, fire has generalistically finite terminus available in any given anywhere. It's a finite reaction. It is not all, and in so much it has within the construct of mathematics, though, seemingly, without knowing that there might be naturalistically a harmonic intersecting instance, seemingly non-terminus, as you haven't defined the variable's naturalistic connotation, right? And so if you're then using this in sandbox application without this connotation, that can whoopsie-daisy cause trapped harmonics of a very bad nature that you don't have, necessarily talking about communications as use of AI or not, whatever. That whole talk, injecting generalistic fluid dynamic patterned pi into the observer domain, um, it otherwise existing, because we're in fire world, not in things flying around, running on Mercury, clean energy reactor world, the Jetsons. We're in Flintstones world. So the first 9 digits of 22 over 7 are 142857142, right? And then the intersecting, when does that occur again? So base 10. We're thinking about constructs presentation, because we're passing through a zeta 0, right? So when does that appear on pi? It appears at the 72 millionth, 680,000th, 412th position. And insofar as that's the case, you can see 9, the number expanded, in the larger number 99, right? So on a scalar thing, where we have 99, so the first gematria, right, thinking split axis, remember the thing I showed earlier is the old ancient Sanskrit symbol, it goes like that and has bad negatives or connotation or whatever, but, one of them with a, curved, sort of, and the other one, hard right angle, right? So a curve and a flat angle at the same time, instantaneously, is essentially, as it's, the influence domain is, from all sides. And once inside the event horizon, I guess you have 3 dimensions, the 4th dimensional manifold experienced, and a probabilistic eventualization of experiencing the zeta 0 if you're a particle. And so you can see very basically the number of digits in total, 9, right? And the number of pi intersection is 72,680,412, right? Which is an interesting number. You play around with that. right? Insofar as it's exacting geometry, right? And I guess I think about 36, 9 expanded in gematria. Think about an accordion gematria, right? So 7, 2. So 7 plus 2 equals 9. Well, we already got 9. And but it's only 8 digits. And the next two are 2 plus 8, 2 plus 6. And that's 8, right? And the next digit is 8, right? There's our construct, I think. So far as that's the 0, that's the other zeta 0 that we're passing through at IU 100, right? Insofar as we're experiencing the lensing effect. So the 0 is actually the trajectory of the particle's eventuality. Does that make sense? And from a distance, the lens is this construct shape of thought, right? And so that 0 there is the reappearance of and subsequent probabilistic influence domain of another black hole, right? So you say, are you always within the event horizon of a black hole generalistically? Pretty much. Yeah, from all sides. Transfuse fixing, and the outflow is think of sprites repopulating on the outside of a sphere, because the sphere produced more novelty than it had, inherently before it had self-asserted itself, right? Due to 22/7 observer domains producing, generalistically within the, everything's in flux. Hard to think about necessarily. Going back to the metaphysical and then back to this. But so you have the accordion from 0 to 100, necessarily not scalar in variability insofar as completely abstract. But the scale, insofar as the mass energy available would be, insofar as if it is a black hole, it has at least this much mass energy available, and subsequently is a black hole, right? That you are experiencing to witness as a black hole, having achieved gravitational absolute zero, which can occur, I guess, directly after, you've event horizon is the 0, right? 0, 100. If you have a probabilistic eventuality, it is. Simply is. And the same point insofar as time as it is history memory, when you have a flat, space is, right? And but you have this lensing effect due to time dilation, generalistically in distance, in perceiving as an observer or with instrument anything, because it is, but isn't necessarily experiential because it's materia inherent in transmutive locomotion through a transmutation equation that's as large as its image, right? So that's the problem with perception. There's a certain amount of dilative, and this is the image you get. So I'm just looking basically curiously at the 1, 2. Yeah. See how the outer, so 7707, and use gematria to fold the 99 intersection is at digit 72,680,412, right? So 2, 3, 4, 7. We hit a 0, that's the construct, right? You see also on the other side of the equation, the unfolded chalice is, there's another 0 over there, right? So what would that be? Well, that would be, consult Descartes, right? 4, if you want to look for 4, look into 3, right? And that's non-terminus pi, actually, 22 over 7, right? And so there's 4, implying just basic geometry and construct, that we've entered a fourth dimensional construct, generalistically in basic, hard line geometry digits here, and then you have what? The first thing it presents is 3.1, right? 1 is what? Two things, rather, right? And that's been split, right? So it's sort of like the implication of the lowest. We're trying to think about this, in metaphysical emotions about math while we're going through it, right? So here's 3 dimensions punching out to 4, right? And that's the left side. Keep in mind the right side now denotes the trajectory for 100, which equals 0. It's just another zeta function, right? So far as the influence domain generalistically, right? And so what does this say about time dilation and optical observation of the universe, insofar as the constancy of that being a thing, necessarily? Yeah. It's neither here nor there. But insofar as your context for nomenclature application, and then fluid dynamic continuance and what is actually occurring, because you hadn't necessarily accounted for particular disapparation and recrystallization and only singularity formation, which is pretty moot insofar as a universe in flux, right? So so we have 99 scalar, and very basically, energy, right, equals, insofar as metaphysically, what would we say energy equates to outside of the context for its literal geometry, fruitioning 2 plus 1, right, which is the black hole implicates, the David Bowie album. He made a profound darkness that seems like it has some light in it, right? And if you look in the shadows, and that's novelty, right? So in order to reach the, that 99, right before the punch out of, and not necessarily because it happens instantaneously, right? Insofar as if you're a particle, but the lensing effect to the observer is occurring. We're talking about the instantaneousness of the particle's trajectory, as it's not an observer, so it does not experience space-time, right? But is nonetheless, in its mass energy sort of momentum, to produce energy, right? That could be what? Around the outside of space-time, you know, part of the conscious equation of life, right? But is not the sieve that filters souls to the afterlife or something, to speak to the metaphysical application. That happens just like the 22/7 observer, regardless of scale, of industry, of, building stars at the end of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the prime mover, generalistically. And that is a distance optical effect that is occurring necessarily, and does produce plasmic arcs that do cross-cut through, hyperdimensionally to causally and continuously, based upon, the laws of the fields, and the geospheres then reconsidered insofar as, and then what voids are, and a star in contrast to this, and how gravitational fields, shield and enable life from this constant sort of recrystallization and extra solar or wherever space, not so much burdened with containing and protective electromagnetic fields, and subsequently, this condensation locally occurring, not necessarily as you're within. See the kook line of thought regarding the Zuckerberg does Wilhelmsburg Castle with the Chinese thing, the equation there. It's not a joke necessarily, right? Just look around Hollywood. A lot of weirdo bullshit. A lot of Boris Balkans. But no, and then time is a history memory talk, that portion of, necessarily consider that insofar as the geosphere geometry, in topological thought think stuff, insofar as contextualizing, recrystallizing particulate disparate matter in the geosphere's concern, as sort of a doorway to maybe what those geometries, the generalistic whatever would look like, using that comical entrance or whatever. So, yeah, we're gonna punch it up to a more better state using the pretty much what I've talked about right now. So the Reimann, and then the Navier Stokes convergence further based upon this further conjecture.